They say what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. I say that's a lie. Some things, they cling to you, follow you home. Welcome to the night shift at the Fortuna Palace. A place where the house always wins, and the price isn't always money. My name is Ray Caldwell, a man seeking a clean slate. But I found myself living by 3 strange rules, just to survive the graveyard shift. What's the creepiest place you've ever worked? Tell me in the comments below. And if you're brave enough to step onto the main floor after dark, subscribe to Night Creepypasta Rules and ring that bell. Because at the Fortuna Palace, the ghosts aren't just in the machines. They're cashing out. The shift begins now. The official slogan for the Fortuna Palace is where fortune smiles. After my first graveyard shift, I figured where sanity weeps was more accurate. Stepping off the baking Las Vegas street and into the casino was like entering another dimension. The air, cool and thick, with the cloying scent of stale cigarette smoke, cheap perfume, and something vaguely medicinal, pressed in immediately. Above, a million tiny lights blinked and shimmered on elaborate chandeliers, and the gaudy faux marble columns that held them up. The persistent electronic symphony of slot machines, chiming, cards shuffling, and distant, forced laughter created a constant, low-grade thrum that vibrated in your teeth. It was designed to disorient, to keep you from thinking too clearly. My name is Ray Caldwell. I wasn't supposed to end up here. A badge felt like a calling once, a way to stand between chaos and order. But that line blurred one night irrevocably, leaving behind only ash and the echoes of screams I couldn't silence. This job, this place, felt like a different kind of uniform, less about justice, more about simply enduring. Enduring the hours, the plastic smiles, and the deep, unsettling feeling that pressed down from the moment I walked through the employee entrance. Vincent Delacroix met me in the small, windowless security office. He was immaculate, even at this hour, in a sharp suit that seemed impervious to the heat and the grime of the city. His movements were precise, economical, every word carefully chosen. He looked like the kind of man who knew where every skeleton was buried, and probably had the keys to the crypts. Mr. Caldwell, his voice was smooth, almost unnervingly calm. Welcome to the team. Your file mentioned a change in career path. He paused, his gaze lingering on me just a fraction too long. It felt less like curiosity and more like assessment. Needed a change, I said, keeping it short. The less said about the past, the better. He gave a thin smile that didn't reach his eyes. Understood. The night shift here is unique. Requires a certain disposition. Attention to detail is paramount. And adherence to protocol. Absolute adherence. He guided me through the sprawling labyrinthine layout of the main floor, pointing out camera blind spots I'd need to monitor, emergency exits I'd never hopefully need, and the hushed, opulent high-roller rooms where fortunes were theoretically made and lost. The sheer scale of the place was overwhelming, a glittering, breathing organism designed to consume. Back in the security office, amidst the glowing screens, he laid out a slim, laminated card. Your operational guidelines, Mr. Caldwell, for the graveyard shift. Most are standard. Patrol routes, incident reporting, dealing with unruly patrons. He tapped the card. But there are 3 specific rules, unique to the Fortuna Palace. You will commit them to memory. You will follow them without question. Your safety, and indeed, the smooth operation of this establishment, depend on it. He slid the card across the desk. I picked it up. The laminate felt cold. Beneath the standard procedures, 3 points were highlighted in red. Never look directly at the live feeds from the high-roller oversight cameras between 3:15 a.m. and 3:45 a.m. What they record during that half hour, it isn't always for mortal eyes. Observe the room itself if you must, but not through those specific lenses. My brow furrowed. What? What exactly am I supposed to avoid seeing? Vincent leaned back, that unsettling calm firmly in place. Anomalies. Digital interference. Sometimes. Artifacts the system cannot reconcile. Looking at them directly can induce severe disorientation, even temporary delusion. We've had incidents. Trust the protocol. If any patron, regardless of appearance or prior behavior, attempts to cash out exactly $1873 in chips, precisely that amount, not a cent more or less, you are to signal floor management via silent alarm channel 7 immediately. Do not engage. Do not process the transaction. And under no circumstances are they to leave with those chips or that value in cash. They are not who they seem. $1873? I asked, my voice flat. It seemed like an absurdly specific amount. A legacy issue, Vincent said, waving a hand dismissively. Old system glitch. Sometimes generates phantom transactions. It's a security flag. Again, the explanation felt inadequate. A thin veneer over something much stranger. Should you hear the distinct sound of multiple slot machines, the old mechanical kind, a symphony of spinning reels and clattering coin payouts, emanating from the sub-level maintenance floor, where I assure you no such machines currently exist, or have existed for decades. Do not investigate. Seal the access door behind you if you are leaving the main floor. Hold your security credential flat against your sternum, and audibly recite the Fortuna Palace's official founding date, June 12th, 1978, until the anomalous sound ceases completely. I stared at the card, then at Vincent. Recite the founding date. Sir, with respect, this sounds like something out of a bad movie. Vincent's expression didn't change, or like strict protocols developed over decades to handle highly unusual, potentially disruptive phenomena. This casino has a history, a deep foundation. These rules are non-negotiable. Caldwell, follow them, and you have a job. Follow them, and you have a job. Ignore them. He let the sentence hang, the implication clear. He stood up. Your first patrol begins in 5 minutes. Familiarize yourself with the layout, the screens, and the rules. Especially the rules. He left the office, the sharp click of his shoes fading down the hallway. I sat alone with the glowing monitors, the distant hum of the casino, and the laminated card burning in my hand. The 3 rules felt less like procedures and more like incantations. And as my eyes scanned the dozens of security feeds, catching glimpses of empty hallways and silent gaming tables waiting for the morning rush, I saw it. Just for a second, a flicker of movement on one of the high roller room cameras. A shadow, too tall, too thin, passing through the empty space between 2 poker tables. When I blinked and refocused, it was gone. Just a glitch, or maybe my eyes were already playing tricks on me. The night had just begun. The rhythm of the night shift settled in quickly, a monotonous cycle of patrols, checking locks, and staring at screens until my eyes burned. The initial oddity of the rules began to fade into a sort of weary acceptance. They were just quirks of the place, I told myself. Strange, yes, but probably harmless. Probably. I saw Elena Vasquez regularly. She worked the cocktail service, gliding between tables with a practiced smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She was sharp, quick-witted, and seemed to possess an encyclopedic knowledge of the casino's gossip and history. We'd exchange brief nods or tired smiles in the quiet hours before dawn. One night, taking a rare break near the service elevator, we fell into conversation. "New guy, right?" she asked, her voice low, almost confidential. "Just about," I replied, sipping lukewarm coffee. "Ray, Elena, welcome to the Twilight Zone." "Welcome to the Twilight Zone." She leaned against the wall, her gaze sweeping across the empty floor. lingering on the distant, silent, high roller section. This place, it gets to you after a while. The noise, the lights, never seeing the sun. She shivered, despite the regulated temperature. Got used to strange hours in my old job, I said, trying to sound nonchalant. Yeah? What was that? I hesitated. Law enforcement. Didn't pan out. She nodded slowly, sensing I didn't want to elaborate. Well, this is different kind of law enforcement. More about keeping things quiet, keeping the secrets in. She paused, her voice dropping further. They got you on the rules yet, the special ones? My hand instinctively went to the card in my pocket. Yeah, the cameras, the specific cash out, and the ghost slot machines. A small, humorless laugh escaped her. Ghost slots. That's what they call it now? My sister used to call them the hungry ghosts. She worked here too. Before, her voice trailed off, her eyes fixed on something far away. Before, I prompted gently. Before she disappeared, Elena said, the word stark in the artificial light. About a year ago. Just vanished after a shift. No note, no trace. Police wrote it off. Fortuna Palace didn't make a fuss. Like she was never here. There was a hard edge to her voice now. A raw pain she usually kept hidden. I still work here. Looking. Asking questions they don't want answered. Her words hung in the air, adding a layer of cold reality to the casino's polished facade. Disappearances. Hungry ghosts. Later that night, as the shift wore on, I felt the familiar pull as 3:15 a.m. approached. The air seemed to grow heavy, the low hum of the casino deepening in pitch. I sat at the monitors, my eyes scanning the layout, deliberately avoiding the 4 screens that showed the high roller rooms. But I could feel it. A presence. Or just my imagination amplified by exhaustion in Elena's story. Then I heard it, faint, almost imperceptible under the constant casino noise, but distinct. A sigh, coming from the direction of the monitors I was avoiding, not through the speakers, but seeming to emanate from the screens themselves. A long, slow exhalation, heavy with sorrow. It raised the hairs on the back of my neck. I gripped the edge of the desk, forcing myself to breathe. It had to be the vents. Or maybe a speaker I hadn't noticed, picking up ambient noise. The feeling of coldness intensified, settling deep in my bones despite the temperature in the office. It felt like the room itself was holding its breath, waiting for me to look. I kept my eyes fixed on a distant, empty hallway feed, counting the tiles on the floor, counting the seconds until 3:45 a.m. The sigh didn't come again. The coldness slowly receded, leaving behind a residue of dread. After the window closed, I felt drained. I pulled out the laminated rules card, looking at the entry about the cameras. What they record isn't always for mortal eyes. And below that, the note about the $1,873. A phantom transaction, a security flag. Elena's sister. Hungry ghosts. A memory surfaced then, from my first day, of Vincent's vague explanation about legacy issues and old system glitches. It felt less like a glitch and more like a marker. A signature. Doing my rounds later, I checked my old patrol notebook from the previous security guard, left behind in a desk drawer. Most of it was mundane notes about lock checks and broken lights, but tucked between 2 pages, a small folded piece of paper fell out. It was just 3 words, scrawled in hurried handwriting. $1,873 GHB, they know. Days blurred into nights. The casino's rhythm felt increasingly like the pulse of something vast and inorganic. I followed the rules, avoided the screens, kept an eye out for suspicious patrons. But the odd occurrences, the small cracks in reality, kept happening. There was Thomas Green, the maintenance guy, a man who looked like he was carved from the dust and shadows of the sublevels. He shuffled around in worn overalls, a permanent stoop to his back, and a faraway look in his eyes. He talked to himself constantly, a low, mumbled stream of words I couldn't quite make out. Sometimes, our paths would cross in the early morning hours. He'd stop, look at me with roomy, ancient eyes, and mutter things like, "They walk the floor, can't see him, but they spend, or don't listen when the house calls. The house always wins, but it collects first." His ramblings were unsettling, cryptic, adding to the growing sense that this place wasn't just a building, but a system with its own dark agenda. Vincent's presence felt heavier too. He wasn't always visible, but I'd feel his eyes on me. A quick glance at a camera feed, and I'd catch him watching my monitor, a slight frown on his face. His polite inquiries about how I was adjusting to the shift started to feel like veiled warnings. Getting used to the quiet hours, Caldwell, the unique aspects. His smile never quite reached his eyes. Then, it happened. Just after 4 a.m., the main floor was nearly empty. Just a few die-hard gamblers clinging to hope. A woman approached the central cashier cage. She was nondescript, wearing faded, ill-fitting clothes that seemed out of place. Her hair was matted, her face gaunt, and her eyes had a disturbing vacant quality, fixed straight ahead as if looking through walls. I was monitoring the cameras for the main floor, my hand near the silent alarm button, my heart already starting to beat faster. She laid a small stack of chips on the counter. The cashier, a young woman named Sarah, began to count them. My eyes were glued to the feed, to the woman. There was an aura of profound stillness about her, a vacuum of presence. Sarah finished counting. $1873 exactly, ma'am. How would you like that? My breath hitched. $1873. Precisely. Rule 2. Adrenaline flooded my system. I slammed my hand down on silent alarm channel 7. A small red light blinked on my console. I kept my eyes on the screen, watching the woman. She didn't react to the cashier's question. Instead, her head slowly turned. Her vacant eyes, magnified by the camera lens, seemed to bore directly into me, sitting in the security office halfway across the casino. A slow, impossibly wide smile stretched her lips, revealing dark gums and teeth that looked wrong somehow. It was a smile of pure, unnatural malevolence. Panic seized me. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. The smile widened, wider than any human mouth should stretch. And then, right there on the camera feed, she simply blurred, like a ripple in water. The image flickered, and she was gone. Not walked away, not ran. Just gone. Sarah the cashier looked bewildered, glancing around the empty floor. Management arrived moments later, looking annoyed. They reviewed the footage, which showed the woman walking up, setting down chips, and then just ceasing to exist on camera. The chips were real, but the woman wasn't on any guest lists, hadn't been seen entering or leaving, and none of the other cameras showed her before or after that moment. The manager, a man named Miller, rubbed his temples. "Another one," he muttered. "Security issue. Must be a new glitch." I knew it wasn't a glitch. I knew I had just seen a hungry ghost try to cash out, and I knew I had seen it, disturbed. I went out onto the main floor later, pretending to do a routine check. I found Sarah pale and shaken. She insisted the woman was real, right in front of her, then just faded. I asked exactly where she had been standing. She pointed to a spot near the cashier cage. I knelt down, examining the polished floor, and there it was. Faint, almost invisible against the dark marble, a small crescent-shaped scratch, like part of a larger symbol, the same symbol I'd seen scrawled on that scrap of paper in my notebook. Incomplete. I needed answers. The casino's history. The year 1873. Elena was my best bet. I found her later that night, discreetly, during her break. I told her about the woman, the $1873, the scratch. Her eyes widened. You saw one? They're getting bolder. She glanced around nervously. 1873. That's the year. The year of the massacre. This place. It was a funeral home back then. Fortuna and Son's funeral services. Right on this spot. She leaned closer, her voice dropping. There was a terrible event. All the bodies, the staff. Gone. A fire, they said. But the stories, they say it wasn't a fire. It was the Undertaker, the owner. Something he was trying to do. A ritual, a funeral home, a massacre. A ritual in 1873, and $1873 was the price, or the signal. The pieces were starting to click together, forming a picture far more terrifying than I could have imagined. The casino wasn't just built on history. It was built on death. Elena looked at me, her eyes filled with desperate kind of hope. My sister. Maybe she found something about it. Maybe that's why. After talking to Elena, the polished surfaces of the Fortuna Palace felt like a thin skin, stretched over something ancient and malevolent. The constant electronic noise seemed like a desperate attempt to drown out something else. My suspicion of Vincent grew daily. His calmness wasn't natural. It was a deliberate mask. He wasn't just managing security. He was managing something else. He watched me, his gaze assessing, perhaps waiting to see if I was a threat, or perhaps a possibility. Caldwell, he said one evening, finding me near the employee lockers. Adjusting well? No. Unusual incidents to report? His tone was light, but his eyes were sharp. Quiet night, sir, I replied, keeping my expression neutral. Good. Consistency is key here. Follow the rules, Ray. They were put in place for a reason. A very important reason. A very important reason. He lingered on the word important. His smile tight. It felt less like encouragement, and more like a reminder that he knew I knew something. The pressure was building. The job was becoming less about surviving the night, and more about surviving the place. The air in the casino often felt charged now, thick with a strange energy that hummed just below the threshold of hearing. The subtle smells, the ozone, the old dust, that sickly sweet hint of decay, were more noticeable, particularly in the quieter corners of the building. One night, during my patrol route, I found myself near the access door to the sub-level maintenance floor. It was a heavy, reinforced door, unmarked except for a number pad. A sense of foreboding washed over me. This was the location of the third rule, the phantom slot machines. And then I heard it. Faint at first, like sounds from a distant room. The unmistakable click-clack of old mechanical slot reels spinning. The cheerful, tinny jingle of a jackpot payout. It grew louder, echoing up the stairwell behind the door. A chaotic, metallic symphony that defied reality. It wasn't coming from the main floor. I knew the difference in sound. This was antique, raw, undeniably originating from below. My heart hammered against my ribs. Rule 3, do not investigate. Lock the door. Badge to chest. Recite the date. The sound was intoxicatingly wrong, drawing me in, tempting me to open the door, to see what impossible thing was making that noise. My hand trembled, hovering over the door handle. Curiosity warred with sheer, primal terror. I forced myself to turn away. I grabbed the heavy handle of the main floor door I had just come through and pulled it shut, the lock clicking into place with a solid thud that felt woefully inadequate. My back pressed against it. I fumbled for my security credential, a plastic card that suddenly felt useless. I pressed the badge flat against my sternum, over my pounding heart. The sound from below continued, a relentless cascade of metallic noise. My voice shook as I began to recite the required mantra. Fortuna Palace. Official founding date, June 12th, 1978. The sounds from below seemed to mock me, growing louder, more frenetic. I could almost picture the spectral machines, tumbling reels spitting out cascades of invisible coins onto an unseen floor. June 12th, 1978. My voice steadied slightly. The air around me felt colder, and I heard something else mixed with the phantom slots. A low, guttural chattering, like teeth clicking together rapidly. I closed my eyes, focusing only on the date, on the words, on the plastic card pressed to my chest. June 12th, 1978. June 12th, 1978. It felt like an anchor in a rising tide of auditory madness. Slowly, painstakingly, the cacophony from the sublevel began to subside. The clattering lessened, the jingles faded, the spinning reels wound down. Finally, only silence remained. A silence that felt just as heavy and unnatural as the noise had been. I stayed there for a full minute more, breathing hard, the cheap plastic badge a cold comfort against my skin. What was down there? What was that noise? And who or what did reciting the founding date protect me from? Or was it protecting it? Later that shift, I sought out Elena again. I described the phantom slots, the cold, the chattering. She listened intently, her face pale. The sublevel. That's where the old foundation is, she whispered. Where the original building stood, the funeral home. My sister. She thought maybe something was still down there. Something connected to the Undertaker. She pulled out her phone, showing me old newspaper clippings she'd found online, dusty scanned documents. The 1873 massacre was mentioned, briefly, officially ruled an accident or fire, but there were whispers, coded references in archive forums and local history blogs, to strange occurrences, missing people, and the Undertaker's curse that lingered over the site. One clipping showed a faded photo of the original funeral home building, a grim Victorian structure. Another mentioned the Fortuna family buying the land decades later. Maxwell Fortuna, Elena said, pointing to a name in a business article. He built this empire from nothing. Started with this casino. They say he was obsessed with luck, with breaking the bank. Almost overnight success. She looked at me, her eyes knowing. What if it wasn't luck, Ray? What if it was a deal? A deal. A deal with what? With who? The Undertaker. As we talked, Thomas Green shuffled past, his broom whispering against the carpet. He saw us, his clouded eyes fixing on me. He hesitated, glanced at Vincent's office door across the floor, then back at me. He fumbled in his pocket and with surprising speed slipped something small and metallic into my hand as he passed. His touch was cold, dry, like old paper. He shuffled on without a word, resuming his mumbled monologue. I looked down at my palm, a small, intricately shaped key. Old, gilded, but tarnished. Not like any key I'd seen for a door on the main floor. Elena leaned over. What is it? The key felt heavy, significant. I remembered Thomas's earlier rambling. In the old records, boiler room, the sublevel, the locked rooms I hadn't been allowed to access. My mind raced. The $1873, the vanishing woman, the phantom slots, the history, Vincent's rules, Thomas's warnings, Elena's sister. They all pointed to one place. Below, where the old foundation lay, where the sounds came from, where the Undertaker's work began. Looked at the key, then at Elena, then back at the sub-level door number pad. The metallic tang of old rust suddenly strong in my nostrils. I think I know where this goes. The key felt cold and heavy in my palm, a tangible piece of the puzzle Thomas had given me. It was ornate, clearly not for a standard modern lock. Elena looked from the key to the sub-level door, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and grim determination. The boiler room entrance. It's around the back, near the old loading dock. There's a secondary access, supposed to be sealed off decades ago. Getting there meant navigating dimly lit service corridors and bypassing a couple of cameras Elena knew the blind spots for. The air grew thicker as we descended, the metallic tang of ozone stronger, mingling with a deep earthy smell like overturned grave soil. The rhythmic hum of the casino machinery above seemed distant, muffled, replaced by the groan of old pipes and the whisper of air vents that carried unnatural chills. We found the door Thomas meant. It was set into a brick wall that looked older than the rest of the corridor. Heavy steel reinforced with iron banding. No keycard reader, just an ancient, intricate lock. My hand trembled slightly as I inserted the key. It fit perfectly. With a heavy, grinding sound, the tumblers turned, and the latch sprang open. A gust of cold air, rank with mildew, and that same sickly sweet smell, hit us as I pulled the door inward. Beyond was utter darkness, impenetrable, even by the faint light from the corridor. Elena produced a small, powerful flashlight from her bag. The beam cut through the blackness, revealing a narrow, stone-walled passage descending into the earth. The air pressure felt different here, heavier, pushing in on my eardrums. The sound of the casino was gone, replaced by a profound, waiting silence. "This is it," Elena whispered, her voice tight. "The old foundation." We descended slowly, each step echoing loudly in the oppressive quiet. The walls were rough-cut stone, sweating with condensation. As we went deeper, the temperature plummeted. My breath plumed in the frigid air. The smell of damp earth and decay intensified, thick enough to taste. We passed rusting equipment, abandoned wiring, the forgotten guts of the building above. Then the passage opened into a larger chamber. It was low-ceilinged, carved roughly into the rock and soil. In the center sat a single heavy wooden desk, coated in a thick layer of dust. Behind it stood a towering empty shelving unit, filled with what looked like ancient bound ledgers. And against the far wall, a strange, low, altar-like structure of dark stone, covered in dried, flaky residue that looked chillingly like blood. Carved into the stone were symbols, complex and disturbing, some of them matching the partial symbol I'd seen scratched on the floor. "The Undertaker's office," Elena breathed, the beam of her flashlight shaking slightly. This was it. We moved towards the desk. The air here felt heavy, charged, like standing too close to a live electrical wire. The dust on the desk disturbed, revealing dark, polished wood. On the desk sat a single thick ledger, bound in what looked like human skin. My stomach turned. With trembling hands, I opened it. The pages were brittle, filled with spidery, dark ink, names, dates, and besides each name a notation, a symbol, not monetary values, something else, harvests, offerings. And the dates stretched back, not just to 1873, but further, though the entries from 1873 were numerous and particularly grim. And among the later entries, I saw it. Elena's sister's name, and below it, other names I recognized from missing person reports or casino gossip. They weren't gambling losses, I said, my voice hoarse. They were the price. Elena cried out softly, seeing her sister's name, seeing the symbol beside it. Suddenly, the single light from Elena's flashlight flickered violently. The air pressure dropped painfully. A low, resonant hum began to fill the chamber, emanating from the stone altar. It vibrated through the floor, up my legs, into my teeth. The symbols on the altar glowed faintly with a sickly green light. And then, the voice. It wasn't spoken aloud, but echoed in my mind, a dry, rasping whisper that felt like bone grinding on stone. "You trespass on sacred ground, on profitable ground." From the shadows, a figure stepped forward. Not Vincent, as I knew him. The suit was the same, but the face was wrong. Features seemed to stretch and distort. eyes holding a cold, ancient malevolence that curdled the blood. His smile was the same impossibly wide, dreadful smile I'd seen on the vanishing woman. Mr. Caldwell, Elena. His voice was Vincent's, but overlaid with that dry whisper, like two sounds fighting for control. I anticipated your curiosity. The key. A careless gift from Thomas. He's always trying to disrupt the flow. My heart hammered. Vincent, what are you? The face shifted again, settling into something closer to Vincent, but the eyes remained those of the void. I am a steward, a conduit, the worthy successor to Fortuna and Sons, the Undertaker's chosen representative in this age. He gestured around the chamber. This is the true foundation. The engine. The casino above. A facade. A beautifully crafted trap, designed to draw them in. The desperate, the lost, the unlucky. The rules, Elena whispered, understanding dawning with horrifying clarity. They aren't for our protection. They're for their control. Precisely, Vincent, or the entity controlling him, confirmed, a chilling satisfaction in his tone. The cameras at 3:15. That is the harvesting hour, when the collected energy is most potent. Looking disrupts the connection, scatters the essence. Painful for them, disruptive to the process. He gestured to the altar. This is where the collected essence is processed, refined. The $1873, that is the access code, the value of a soul in the old ritual. When they present that specific amount, they are marking themselves for collection, signaling their readiness. He chuckled, a dry, rattling sound. Most don't even know they have that amount, but the house, it nudges them, guides them through their losses, their despair. He pointed to the rough opening wound come through, and the sounds below, the hungry ghosts. Those are the unlucky souls, trapped in the foundation, their energy fueling the luck above. The founding date, it's a leash, a binding phrase woven into the very structure of this place by the first Fortuna, the Undertaker's son, to give the living just enough control to operate the system without becoming completely consumed. He stepped towards the ledger. Your sister, Elena, she found this chamber, tried to interfere. She was a valuable addition to the collection. Elena screamed, a raw sound of grief and rage. You monster! Not a monster, Vincent corrected, the dry whisper dominating now. An entity of efficient transaction. I offer prosperity, fortune, to those on the surface, in exchange for a modest collection. A fair trade in the grand scheme. He fixed his gaze on me. And you, Ray, a policeman, burdened by guilt. A policeman seeking absolution. A prime candidate. Your essence. It has a certain resonance. A depth of despair. The Undertaker finds you most promising. My mind reeled. The past I was trying to escape had led me here, to a place where the truly lost were harvested. The casino's luck wasn't random chance. It was stolen life force. The rules weren't bureaucratic quirks. They were the chains that bound reality to this ancient evil. My old job felt pointless now. This was true chaos, true injustice. I won't let you, I said, my voice shaky, but firm. The fear was immense, but something else was rising. The old sense of duty, battered, but not broken. Vincent Undertaker laughed, a sound like dry leaves skittering across concrete. You don't have a choice, Ray. You are already part of the system. You found the ledger. You understand the rules now. their true meaning. You are compromised. He lunged, not with physical force, but with a wave of chilling energy that hit me like a physical blow, sending me stumbling back against the stone wall. Elena cried out, scrambling away. The air around Vincent shimmered, growing cold enough to freeze bone. Shadows seemed to detach themselves from the walls, swirling around him. The scent of decay became overpowering. "You can't win! Win!" Vincent's voice boomed. The dry whisper, now a chorus of unseen voices. "The house always wins." Desperation surged. I looked at the ledger, at the altar, at the ancient symbols. The rules. They weren't just bindings for us, they were bindings for it. The founding date, the specific amount, the cameras, they controlled the flow, the collection. If I could disrupt the flow, I had to act. I grabbed a heavy rusted pipe leaning against the wall. The spiritual attack intensified. Images flashed before my eyes. The night my partner died, twisted into grotesque parodies. Whispers in my mind, dredging up every failure, every regret. "You couldn't save yourself. You can't save yourself. You belong to the house now." Elena, seeing my struggle, grabbed a handful of dust and rubble from the floor near the altar, dust that felt strangely warm and gritty. She hurled it at Vincent Undertaker. It didn't seem to physically harm him, but it caused him to recoil, a hiss escaping him. "Distraction," she yelled. Taking my chance, ignoring the psychic assault, I lunged towards the altar, raising the pipe. The Undertaker's attention snapped back to me. "No!" The chorus of voices shrieked. My foot slipped on the damp floor. I stumbled, falling towards the altar. As I fell, my hand instinctively reached out, not for the pipe, but for the ledger. My fingers brushed the cover, and a wave of pure, unadulterated agony shot up my arm. The ledger wasn't just bound in skin. It was skin, living, suffering. But the touch seemed to briefly connect me to something else. The trapped souls, their whispers joined the chorus of the Undertaker, a cacophony of pain and confusion, but also a flicker of resistance. Vincent Undertaker moved to intercept me, his form solidifying, reaching out with hands that seemed too long, fingers ending in sharp, dark nails. I saw the flash of movement on a screen in my mind, the rule about the cameras, the harvesting hour, 3:15 to 3:45. It wasn't just about avoiding seeing them. It was about what they did. They recorded. They captured. An insane idea formed. I wouldn't disrupt the ritual. I'd redirect it. Use the very tools they used against them. I looked around wildly. A forgotten piece of old heavy camera equipment, likely from before the modern system, lay in a corner, damaged but perhaps still capable of something. Or maybe not. The odds were impossible. Vincent Undertaker was almost on me. Elena cried out again, trying to create another diversion. I made a split-second decision. Forget the camera. Use what I knew. The $1873. The access code. The signal. It drew them out. I didn't have chips, but I had understanding. And I had desperation. 1873. I roared, the number echoing in the small chamber. I didn't have the exact amount, but I had the intent, the recognition of the signal. Vincent Undertaker froze, a flicker of confusion crossing his face. What? What are you doing? Simultaneously, I ripped the ledger from the altar, a tearing sound, wet and sickening. The book writhed in my hands, the glowing symbols on the altar dimmed slightly. The chorus of whispers around Vincent intensified, becoming a chaotic storm. The trapped souls, perhaps recognizing their signal, perhaps spurred by the disruption, began to rise within the very walls of the chamber. Thomas's voice was among them, clearer now, a frantic "Run! Run, boy!" The Undertaker's form, channeled through Vincent, began to buckle, shimmering like the vanishing woman. The concentration, the control, was breaking. I didn't wait. Elena. The door. Go! I threw the writing ledger towards the altar, a desperate act of defiance. It landed on the stone with a wet thud, seeming to fuse with it. The green light flared violently. Vincent Undertaker shrieked, a sound that wasn't human. You fool! You've only delayed. His form dissolved into a vortex of shadow and that sweet, sickening smell. Elena was already scrambling for the door, fumbling with the ancient lock. I backed away from the altar, the cold intensifying, the whispers no longer just in my head but seeming to emanate from the very stone walls. A rising tide of confused, angry voices, some grateful, some still hungry. The sounds of the phantom slots began to rumble from deeper within the earth. The system was breaking down. The Undertaker was still here. Still bound to this place. Still collecting. But maybe I had bought some time. Maybe I had disrupted the flow. I turned, stumbling towards the door. Elena finally pulling it open. A sliver of blessed, mundane casino light cutting through the ancient darkness. The sounds of the casino above seemed impossibly loud now. A symphony of life and loss that felt both comforting and horrifying. As I scrambled through the doorway, a final whisper, colder than the rest, brushed against my ear, seeming to follow me from the chamber. The price has been paid, for now. The heavy metal door slammed shut behind us, the ancient lock clicking back into place with a finality that sent shivers down my spine. The sudden return of the casino's ambient noise felt like a physical blow after the oppressive silence and the chaos of the chamber below. The bright, flashing lights, the artificial cheerfulness, it all felt grotesque now. A garish mask on a face of death. Elena leaned against the cold metal of the door, breathing in ragged gasps, tears streaming down her face. My sister, she choked out, the name a heartbroken whisper. I stood beside her, leaning on the rusted pipe, my body aching, my mind reeling. The ledger, the altar, Vincent's twisted form, the whispers of the trapped souls. It was too much to process. The scent of decay seemed to cling to us, a foul perfume in the perfumed air of the casino. He's gone, I said, my voice hoarse, or pushed back. Whatever he was, he's part of this place, Elena said, wiping her eyes with a trembling hand. He is this place, the Undertaker. Vincent was just the face he wore. We stayed there for a long moment, letting the surreal reality of the casino wash over us, trying to anchor ourselves back in this artificial world after dipping into the horror beneath. My badge was still clutched in my hand, the plastic cool and inert, a symbol of a job that no longer felt remotely real. Footsteps approached. Vincent, or what was left of him. He rounded the corner, his suit disheveled, his face pale and sweaty. The composure was gone, replaced by a frantic, wide-eyed look. He looked human again, but broken. Caldwell, Vasquez, he snapped, his voice sharp with panic, not the smooth calm from before. What the hell happened down there? The system's gone haywire. Readings off the charts. What did you do? He stopped short when he saw the pipe in my hand, the dirt and grime on our clothes, the raw fear in our faces. His eyes darted to the locked sub-level door behind us. A flicker of the ancient malice returned to his gaze, but it was quickly masked by confusion and something that looked like genuine alarm. The Undertaker's hold had been weakened, but maybe not severed. We found it, Vincent, I said, my voice low. We found the records, the ledger. We know what this place is. His face went slack for an instant, a mask cracking. Then, just as quickly, he regained a semblance of control. Nonsense, Caldwell. You've been down there too long. The air quality, it can cause hallucinations. Step away from the door. We need to assess the damage. He took a step towards us. Despite the facade of concern, I saw the predatory glint in his eyes. He wanted to get back down there, to fix whatever I had broken, to reassert the Undertaker's control. Stay back, Vincent, I warned, raising the pipe slightly. He paused, assessing the situation. Two scared, dirty employees, one with a pipe. Against the director of security, he seemed to calculate the optics. And perhaps the risk of engaging us physically when he was clearly weakened. This isn't over, he said, his voice dropping back to a low growl that carried a chilling resonance. You've interfered with things you don't understand. There will be consequences. He turned abruptly and walked away, heading towards the security office, presumably to try and salvage whatever system I had disrupted. His figure seemed smaller now, less imposing, but the lingering sense of something ancient and hungry clinging to him was unmistakable. Elena and I exchanged a look. We were alive. We had survived the climax, but the threat wasn't gone. Me had survived the climax. It had just retreated into the shadows, licking its wounds. The casino above was humming along, blissfully unaware of the battle fought in its forgotten depths, or the price its luck demanded. What do we do now? Elena asked, her voice barely a whisper. I looked at the heavy door, at the casino lights, at the direction Vincent had gone. Call the police. Tell them a casino director is a vessel for an ancient evil, and the building is powered by harvested souls. They'd lock us up for psychiatric evaluation before the first patrol car reached the strip. The media? Maxwell Fortuna's influence would bury the story faster than we could say Undertaker. No, we were on our own. We had proof. The knowledge, the key. Maybe even some residual energy clinging to us. But against the power and influence of the Fortuna Empire, it was nothing. My mind went back to my past, to the case I couldn't solve, the life I couldn't save. I had failed then because I had followed the rules, the procedures, the system. I had trusted that the system would deliver justice. It hadn't. This time, the rules here were clearer, more terrifying, and I had just broken them. We needed to figure out how to fight back. Not against Vincent, or even just the Undertaker, but against the entire house itself. And the house, I knew, always found a way to collect. As I stood there, the adrenaline starting to fade, a new fear began to creep in. Not just for what was below, but for what would happen now that I had disturbed it. The house might always win, but it also remembers who tried to cheat. Life outside the Fortuna Palace continued as if nothing had happened. The sun rose over the desert, the strip glittered under the clear blue sky, and tourists poured into casinos, chasing luck. For Elena and me, though, the world had irrevocably shifted. The neon signs no longer felt like promises of fun, but like beacons drawing moths to a hungry flame. We didn't go back to work immediately. We called in sick, inventing flimsy excuses. Every time the phone rang, I expected it to be Vincent, his voice stripped of its facade, delivering a threat. Or worse, that dry, rasping whisper in my ear. We met in a small, anonymous diner off-strip. The smell of frying bacon and cheap coffee, a strange comfort after the decay of the sub-level. We talked in hushed tones, poring over Elena's printouts of news clippings, trying to make sense of the madness. We tried contacting a few local journalists Elena knew, hinting at a story about the casino's dark history and mysterious disappearances. They listened politely, their interest fading the moment we went beyond rumors and started talking about ancient rituals and haunted foundations. The name Fortuna had a way of shutting doors. We even considered going to the police, to my old department contacts. But the memory of Vincent's calm denial, the easy dismissal of the $1873 incident, as a glitch, echoed in my mind. They wouldn't believe us. They couldn't believe us. Not without proof that stood up to forensic analysis. Not just a twisted ledger made of skin and a key to a forgotten chamber. Elena found a small, online forum dedicated to local Las Vegas legends and unexplained phenomena. Hidden deep within archived posts. Someone had mentioned the Undertaker's curse on the land where the Fortuna Palace stood, hinting at a pact made long ago. The poster, under a pseudonym, had written cryptic warnings about certain times of night and specific numbers. The last post was dated over a year ago. Went to investigate. Heard the singing from below. Never again. The singing. Rule 2. The melodic vocalizations carried on the wind or from beneath the ice, or from below the maintenance floor. It wasn't just a northern phenomenon. It was a sound the trapped souls made, or perhaps the Undertaker's own macabre song. A few days turned into a week. No direct threats came. No visits from Vincent. The silence was almost worse than the confrontation. It felt like the house was simply waiting, letting us stew, letting us realize the futility of trying to expose it. One afternoon, driving aimlessly, I passed the Fortuna Palace. It was daytime. The neon lights muted by the sun, the building looking less imposing, almost ordinary. But as I drove by, I felt that familiar sense of coldness, of being watched. I glanced at the high roller room windows on the upper floors. Were those just reflections I saw in the glass, or something else? Elena decided she couldn't stay in Vegas. The city and the casino felt like a cage built of neon and fear. She packed her things, determined to start over somewhere far away. Before she left, she hugged me tightly. "Be careful, Ray," she whispered. "Don't let it get you. Don't become another number in that book." I wished her luck, though the word tasted like ash. She drove away, a small dot, vanishing into the endless desert highway. I was alone again, just like when I first arrived in Vegas, seeking anonymity. Only now, I was burdened by a terrible truth, and marked by a force I couldn't comprehend. I didn't go back to my apartment that night. I checked into a cheap motel on the outskirts of town. The room was bare, smelling of disinfectant and desperation. I lay on the thin mattress, staring at the ceiling, the hum of the ancient air conditioner doing little to block out the echoes in my mind. The rustle of the ledger, the dry whisper, the jingle of phantom coins, the awful silence after the klaxon. Sleep wouldn't come. Every shadow seemed to writhe. Every creak of the building felt like footsteps. And then, subtly, insidiously, I heard it, very faint, coming from everywhere and nowhere. The distinct tinny jingle of an old slot machine payout. It was muted, as if coming from far away, or perhaps from somewhere just beyond the edge of hearing. But it was unmistakable. The sound I had heard from below the maintenance floor. The sound that signaled the presence of the hungry ghosts. My body tensed, every muscle coiled. I held my breath, listening intently. Was it real? Or was my mind finally breaking, giving in to the paranoia and trauma? The sound faded. Just the hum of the AC again. A trick of the mind. Had to be. I closed my eyes, trying to force myself to relax. And then, a whisper, cold and dry, right beside my ear. "The price has been paid. For now." My eyes snapped open. There was nothing there, just the empty, stale air of the motel room. But the cold lingered, and the whisper felt real. More real than the motel, more real than the night outside. The Undertaker was still here, still collecting. And he hadn't forgotten me. I had disrupted his game, but I hadn't won. The house always wins. It just takes its time collecting. And I had the chilling feeling that my name, Ray Caldwell, was already etched somewhere, on a new ledger, waiting for the final tally. I lay there in the darkness, listening to the silence, knowing it wasn't empty. The sounds would come again. The whispers would return. I had survived the night shift. But the shift wasn't over. It had just followed me home, and the thought was colder than any Arctic wind. The games were just beginning. The house always wins. Ray Caldwell learned that some prices are paid in something far more valuable than chips. The rules weren't just for the job. They were a desperate attempt to manage an ancient horror lurking beneath the neon. The Undertaker's ledger. It has long reach. Seriously, if you didn't stay until the very end, you missed the final chilling collection call. The twist that reveals the true, terrifying reach of the Fortuna Palace's curse. The last few moments will leave you questioning your own luck. What do you think the $1873 truly signifies? What is the relationship between Vincent and the Undertaker? Share your theories in the comments below. And if you made it through the night shift at the Fortuna Palace, if the house hasn't collected you, then you're already a part of our story. Subscribe to Night Creepypasta Rules, because some games, they never truly end, and the price is always due.